Welcome to my channel, where history and mystery come together. Tonight, I bring you a tale of adventure, suspense, and the unknown. Gather around the fire as we delve into shadows in the pines. A camping tale. It started with a group of friends looking for a getaway. In the summer of 2018, 5 friends, Megan, Chris, Lisa, Danny, and Eric, decided to go camping in the Pine Creek Preserve, a sprawling wilderness in Texas known for its towering trees and endless trails. Pine Creek was beautiful by day, but whispered about for its eerie nights. Locals spoke of strange sightings, ghostly figures among the trees, and the inexplicable sounds of a child's laughter. The friends, eager for adventure, laughed off the rumors and pitched their tents near the creek. The first night was perfect. Roasted marshmallows, ghost stories by the fire, and the tranquil sound of nature. But as the hours stretched past midnight, the mood began to shift. Chris noticed at first a faint, sweet melody drifting through the woods. It sounded like an old lullaby, carried on the wind. The group fell silent, straining to hear. "Is someone out there?" Megan asked, her voice tinged with unease. No one answered. Danny, ever the skeptic, brushed it off. "Probably someone's Bluetooth speaker," he said with a chuckle. But deep down, they all felt it, a creeping sense of being watched. The second day brought more oddities. Megan and Eric went for a hike and found an old, rusted swing set in a clearing, its chains swaying gently despite the still air. "This isn't on the map," Eric muttered, snapping a photo. The swings groaned, as if someone invisible had just sat down. A shiver ran down Megan's spine, and they hurried back to camp. Meanwhile, Lisa and Chris stayed behind to explore the creek. As they skipped stones, Lisa swore she saw something move beneath the water, a shadow, too large to be a fish. Chris laughed it off, but when they returned to camp, Lisa couldn't shake the feeling that something had been watching them. That night, the lullaby returned, clearer and closer. The group huddled around the fire, each pretending not to hear the soft, lilting tune. Then came the laughter, light, childlike, and impossibly near. Lisa grabbed a flashlight. "I'm checking this out," she said, her voice trembling. Chris and Danny followed, leaving Megan and Eric by the fire. The light from their flashlights bobbed through the trees until it disappeared entirely. Minutes turned into hours. Megan and Eric called out for their friends, but no one answered. The forest seemed to close in around them, the shadows deepening. Just as panic set in, Lisa, Chris, and Danny stumbled back into the clearing, their faces pale. "We found something," Chris whispered. "An old cabin. There's something inside." Against their better judgment, the group decided to investigate the cabin the next morning. It stood deep in the woods, weathered and leaning, with windows that seemed to watch them approach. Inside, they found children's toys strewn across the floor, a rocking chair that creaked though no one touched it, and faded wallpaper peeling away to reveal words scratched into the wood beneath. "Don't let her sing." "What does it mean?" Megan asked, her voice barely above a whisper. No one had an answer. Eric snapped more photos, but when he looked at the screen, his heart stopped. Standing in the doorway behind them was the faint outline of a little girl, her eyes dark and hollow. "We need to leave," he said, his voice shaking. But as they turned to go, the door slammed shut. The lullaby grew louder, echoing through the cabin. Shadows danced along the walls, forming shapes that seemed to reach for them. The group managed to force the door open and ran back to camp, their breaths ragged. They packed up in frantic silence, desperate to leave Pine Creek behind. But as they loaded their gear into the car, Megan froze. "Where's Eric?" she asked. They turned to see him standing at the edge of the woods, staring into the trees. "Eric!" Chris shouted. He didn't move. The group rushed to him, but when they reached him, his eyes were glazed, and he was murmuring something under his breath. The lullaby. They shook him awake, and he snapped out of it, confused but unharmed. Without another word, they piled into the car and drove away, the shadowy pines fading in the rearview mirror. Back in the safety of their homes, they tried to forget what had happened, but the experience lingered. Eric's photos were too blurry to prove anything, except for one, a single frame of the cabin's doorway, where a small figure could just be seen, watching. Lisa deleted the photo, but they all knew the truth. Pine Creek Preserve wasn't just a forest. It was something else entirely, something that didn't want them to leave. Eric, however, couldn't seem to move on. Weeks after their trip, he began to hear the lullaby again, faint and distant. It followed him in his dreams, and sometimes in the quiet moments of the day. One night, unable to take it any longer, he returned to Pine Creek alone. His friends never heard from him again. The locals whispered about him, just as they did the others who had vanished in those woods. And now, when the wind blows just right, hikers claim to hear the soft, sweet melody of a lullaby drifting through the pines, joined by a new voice. Thank you for joining me on my channel. If this story sent a shiver down your spine, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, stay curious, and beware the shadows in the pines.